Chapter 2.2, Part 5. We're still in painting, and we're going to start this video at acrylic paint. So acrylic paint did not exist since 1950, roughly. It's a plastic, it's a polymer resin. So remember, if you have a quiz question that has to do with dates and times, mid 20th century, 1950 exactly, is the beginning of use of acrylic paint. And it works, it's water soluble, but once it hardens, it is like a hard plastic. It's almost like as much of a plastic as, something that, a toy or something that's made of plastic. So it can be used in the same way that oil paint is used. It can be used and watered down like a watercolor. It's very versatile. Julie Mehretu, this is excerpt. This piece here, she layered layers of paint one on top of the other. And that's easier to do with acrylic paint than oil because oil dries slowly. Acrylic paint dries quicker, if that makes sense. So that is part of its versatility or usefulness. She draws between the layers and she uses other media. This piece from Ralph Larman Kolopoulos in 2010 kind of has an older Thomas Hart Benton feel to it, early 20th century, but it's actually 21st century here. And part of his using acrylic paint in this particular case was to do with the subject matter, that it is about coal and about pollution and plastics. Now we're living in the downfall of coal and the downfall of plastics, but when they were invented, we thought it was just the most fantastic thing ever. So I wasn't there at that time. You know what I'm saying? So it's reflecting the manufacturing process, so it's connecting to the work. This doesn't always happen where the media connects to, or process connects to the message. Sometimes it does. So mixed media painting, we're starting to get blurry in the, again, 20th century, mid 20th century. It's not as important for artists to stick with one material or one way of painting. Oil painting could be mixed with, ink or acrylic paint could be mixed with collage. So we get into mixed media. Robert Rauschenberg, this is his piece Bed, very famous piece, 1955. So we see this shift from abstract expressionism, where Robert Rauschenberg was just doing these big areas of color, and now he's incorporating objects into this piece. This is an actual quilt, collaged on. Now, collage is a word we use for two-dimensional work. So now we have a new word that has to do with Rauschenberg, and a little bit before him, Joseph Cornell, assemblage. It's a French word, same as collage, but assemblage is 3D, collage is 2D. So now we're into assemblage. He's bringing all these different things together. He's layering paint on top of fabric and an actual pillow and an actual sheet, actual quilt, and he calls these combined paintings. So he's accentuating the physical nature, he's splattering the paint, and he is using oil paint and pencil as well as wood and a quilt. So another piece that is mixed media, Jane Fraser's Hog K number 18. So she's kind of doing almost like a map, with the materials that are sand and real pieces of rock in a collage here. So it's a mixed media piece with oil paint and different kinds of rock and stone. We're going to get into mural and spray paint. So murals come in different forms. Sometimes we see artists collaborate with a neighborhood, and that's a really great way to do a mural. They ask about the history of the neighborhood, an event, a famous person that came from that neighborhood or that area, and they come up with an idea for a mural, and then they paint that particular image there, and sometimes they enlist residents to help with some of the painting and some of the setup. Spray paint is a tag artist or a graffiti artist material, and our spray paint kind of brings us full circle back into those prehistoric people painting on caves because that some of that paint was sprayed. So this piece here is an acrylic on canvas. Now I know that seems a little confusing because the other murals we looked at earlier in this chapter and elsewhere in the book are frescoes, and they're permanent fixtures onto the building. Well, over history and buildings have been torn down or the owners sell them or something like that, it's kind of tragic because sometimes murals will get painted over or torn down with the building. So in this day and age, we're using acrylic on canvas and then it's attached to the wall in another stage. So the mural isn't often, I wouldn't say never, but it isn't often attached to the wall directly. The paint is not applied to the wall, it's on canvas and then it's pasted up onto the wall. So it's an interior wall, so that's why it's really beautiful and colorful and well preserved. Also the acrylic paint. And this is a case where this is in the Dallas Latino Cultural Center. So of course we've got dancing figures that represent the accordion and different parts of music, and a monk or a priest here, different things to do with the local culture. This piece from Diego Rivera, very famous. This is a fresco. Now, this is in 1934, and this is a point in time, and he's one of the reasons that artists don't paint in fresco directly on the wall, because he did put this in a version of this originally in the Rockefeller Center. Rockefeller got offended because there are some communist figures over here, and it really has to do with the rise of communism, and Rockefeller is a capitalist. He was very offended. So they tore it down and he had to start over, and now this is in Mexico City. So that's one of the reasons that murals are no longer done in fresco in this day and age. Sometimes they are, but it's less frequent. Banksy, who has become very notable and very famous and very wealthy from some of his works, but his graffiti embodies humor. We look at this as almost looks like a realistic child, and here he is a graffiti artist, and he's poking fun at that sense of graffiti removal. And this is spray paint, and the reason that graffiti artists like it is because it's very fast, and then they're using a stencil, which is very much like ancient cave art.